Hey lady, welcome to the Postpartum on Purpose podcast. If we haven't met, my name is Annemarie. I'm married to James and mom to 5 beautiful kids, ages 9 and under, with 1 miscarried baby. Here we see postpartum, all the way from birth to the first year of life, as a time of grit, growth, and grace. This is episode 74. Hi lady, how are ya? If you're listening in real time or close to it, it has been several weeks that I took off for Christmas and the New Year, and we're back in action now. I am thrilled to speak to you again, and I want to be very brief today. And you know I say that all the time. And in my head, I am going to be very brief. Or maybe I am brief. And maybe I just need to expand my definition of what brief means. But, the guest episode today is the first time that I have ever thought, as soon as I finished listening to it, because of course I listened to them before I put them into the file, the podcast file, and published them. But it was the first time that I thought, as soon as I listened to it, I need to listen to that again. And then I went back last night and listened to it for a second time. And I wanted to make a couple of notes because I wanted to let you know, hey, here are things like pay attention for this. But by the time I had written the 8th or 9th thing down, I thought, Jiminy Christmas, I'm just highlighting, essentially trying to highlight the whole presentation, the whole reflection. And let's then get our 2 things out of the way so that we can get to the meat, because I am thrilled to share this guest episode with you today here. The free thing that I want to talk about is actually a Christmas gift, and it was a gift bag given to me by a very good friend, one of our Grandma Tribe members, the original Grandma Tribe member, and it was themed free things. And you know how close free things are to my heart. You know that they are a mental shorthand for ways for me to be grateful for the things that have been given to me. You know that they represent the beautiful, full, rich life that we are able to live, no matter how many children we have, no matter how big our budget is. And you know that free things matter a lot to me. And to have an entire gift that was themed free things, I just can't even explain to you. But you can guess. And I will just simply say this, that every time something else came out of the bag, the lady who gave it to me would explain how it was a free thing. And it was like the back and forth of a chant for sports teams. I pictured it as just like, we've got spirit. Yes, we do. We've got spirit. How about you? But like you go back and forth. And so she would say, for instance, I got 2 soaps at Bath and Body Works. And then she would say, and the third one was, and I would say free. And we just did that. And it was the neatest thing. There was a storytelling that happened to explain how each of these items came about. And it just was, it was just extraordinary. It was extraordinary. I won't go into everything that was in there, but it was the thought behind the gift that was most particularly touching to me. And then the one small change that I wanted to share for this week is that I graduated from pelvic floor therapy. Now, to be frank, I could have graduated sooner because I knew the exercises I needed to do. I saw strength and improvement in my core. And actually, this is one thing I will say. Actually, this was the fastest that my diastasis recti closed or healed. I think out of maybe, well, at least the last 3 pregnancies that I've been to pelvic floor therapy for. And I think that was probably in part, I was thinking about this the other day, like, why was that? How did that happen so fast, relatively speaking? I think it's probably related to the fact that I was going to pelvic floor therapy and strengthening my core and strengthening my pelvic floor in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. I just wonder if there was a level of strength that was there, that of course my abdominal muscles are being stretched by the baby, but then maybe that strength that was already in place was what made it easier to resolve after the baby was born. Just a thought, but I think it could make some sense. All right, now let's get to the guest portion of this episode. I have known Elena for, I guess, most of the time that we lived in the Springfield area. We've moved out now. We're not in Springfield anymore, but I have known her for, I think, over 10 years. And for a number of years, we were on a pre-Cana marriage prep retreat team for the diocese. She and her husband and my husband and I were both on the team. And I have known of the story of her daughter Maggie's birth, but I have only known it from the outside. And I knew that Elena has a gift for storytelling that would bless a lot of other women. And I don't know how many of you this will directly apply to, experiencing postpartum when your child receives an unknown diagnosis. And I do mean undiagnosis potentially going in one of 2 ways. One, meaning that nobody knows what this diagnosis is. And at some point, of course, that goes away, right? For the vast majority of cases. At some point, you do then know what the diagnosis is. But to address first off a situation where you or the medical team, or maybe both of you, have no idea what this is at first. Something unexpected has happened. You were expecting the birth of your baby, but you were not expecting a diagnosis. And yet here, both of these things are hitting you all at once. But then the second situation can also be an unknown diagnosis, meaning there's not a lot known about this medical condition, right? So it's not just that you at first didn't know that there was something going on and then you did, but then even after you found out about it, maybe it is a little known condition, which comes with all sorts of other unknowns. And postpartum is a tricky time to have that many unknowns. Those are the reasons that I really hoped Elena would share this story with you, and she agreed to it, and I'm very grateful for that. There are a couple of lines that I wanted to sort of highlight for you. I did narrow it down a little bit from my 10 or 12 things I originally pulled out, but a couple sentences to listen for and then pay attention to what comes after. One is her OB's response when Maggie was born. Another is the moment when she says, "I felt so defeated in that moment." That was a real, if you're going to put timestamps on something, I would put a timestamp there. And when she said, "I wish I had the courage to say ... because I remember different times through different postpartums thinking, I wish I had the courage to say blah, blah, blah. And then the last one was just the sentence that began with, "I just need," and then you'll take it from there. I'm so grateful to be able to share this with you. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did.
Hi, my name is Elena, and I am here in Springfield, Illinois. I have 5 kids here on Earth, and I've been married to my husband for over 15 years. I'd love to share with you just my own experience with having a child with an unknown diagnosis at birth. I guess it started, we had our news that we were expecting baby number 4, and, everybody was overjoyed. I have 2 boys and a girl, and so this new baby, Maggie, was to be our number 4, and she would be 3 years after her sister. And so it was it was like a big transition, number 1, just mentally, just thinking about, oh gosh, transitioning from 3 to 4. And I think part of me was like, oh wow, well, we did 3 pretty good, so 4 should just be fine. And and so we were really excited about that. And Maggie actually was the first one that we found out what we were having, because I had a huge inclination that it was going to be a girl, and indeed it was a little girl, much to the dismay of her brothers, who were really hoping to outnumber us. But yeah, so I would say it started, at the 20-week sonogram. I got back the pictures, and all of our kids up to that point had this like cute little swoop, of their nose, and it's kind of, they take after me in that they had this little swoop in their nose, and, and they have this, like, they do the profile and their little lips are sticking out. And, I was looking for that. I opened it up and looked, and I thought, oh gosh, like I don't see the swoop in the nose, and I don't see the little lips protruding. And I thought, oh, well, whatever, it must just be like the angle, and, oh well. So I just kind of brushed it out of my mind. And the rest of the pregnancy was, just perfectly amazing. Super easy. I had a really great pregnancy. And we went to the hospital, and Maggie was born, and I was so thankful. I had my own OB there, and part of the reason I was super thankful is just her response. So when Maggie was born, they laid her on my chest, and it's like when you look at your newborn baby, my first thing is I looked at her hands, And Maggie's hands, her fingers, little fingers weren't separated. Her 4 fingers were attached to one another. And not like webbed, but just like almost fully, completely attached, like one whole unit. And I noticed it was on both hands. And then I looked at her feet and I noticed they were webbed. And I just looked at Carlos and my husband, and I was just like, oh, like what is going on? And I love my OB. She just looked at me and she said, you just hold that baby and love that baby. And I think honestly in that moment, that was the most important thing as a mom I needed to hear. It was just like, that was really the only thing I could offer at that moment in so many unknowns. Yeah, it was just great advice. Just hold that baby and love that baby. And we had already picked her name. So we already knew it was Maggie. And, you know, so many things go through your mind. And my husband, you know, in his mind, it immediately went back to our first babies that we lost. And I just heard him say, I don't want to lose another one. And I was just struck straight through my whole body with confidence. And it was just one of those mama moments where it was like, nope, like everything is going to be fine. And I just said that so loud and so confidently, like, no, everything's going to be fine. And I think in that moment, I believed it. Later on, I doubted. But in that moment, I believed it. And I think it was just the confidence we needed just to get from that moment to the next. Because they did end up taking Maggie and taking her over to get checked. And thanks be to God, everything was fine. With her major organs, she was breathing. Her lungs were great. Her heart was okay. And they put her right back with me. And, you know, I think about, you know, so many parents who go through having a child with an unknown diagnosis and having them taken away. And we were very blessed that was not our experience. Maggie got to spend a lot of time with us. And, you know, and we told them, like, we want the baby here. We want the baby. Like, I want to hold the baby. I want Maggie right here with me. There were really difficult times, though, sitting in there. I remember one time, you know, I remember just being in this flux of, like, I don't know medically what all my child needs. But at the same time, I know that she needs me. And they were coming in and out saying, well, now we need to check her kidneys. Now we need to check her heart. Now we need to check this. Because through the process, they did not know what was going on with Maggie. And I didn't know either. I had an inclination. You know, us moms tend to do quite a bit of research when our kids have things going on. And I had narrowed it down to either two things, that either she had something called Apert syndrome or she had Crouzon's, which is a sibling, basically, of that genetic disorder. And Maggie ended up having Apert syndrome. And basically, it's where the bones fuse. And so her skull was fused. She had pterocephaly, where her skull grows up because the sutures in her skull had fused too early, and her hands and her feet were webbed. And it creates a lot of other things. You know, she did have 2 holes in her heart that closed. Thanks be to God. She didn't have any issues with her kidneys. She did have a couple extra bones. She had a couple extra bones here and there. A couple extra digits in her toes, which her siblings frequently point out that she's so cool that she has 12 toes. Yeah. And, you know, it just, so during that first process of being in the hospital, you know, they were coming in and out and asking her for testing. And I remember I was feeding her, and the nurse came in and said, we need her for testing right now. And I said, okay, well, I'm feeding her right now. And the nurse reached over to unlatch her from me. And I said, oh, hold on. And I unlatched her in that moment and I handed her over. And I just felt so defeated in that moment. I wanted to be her mom. I wanted to feed her. I wanted to give her the one thing I could give her. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't give her everything. But at the same time, there was this moment of, I wish I had the courage to say, I'm sorry, I need you to wait just 2 minutes. And just asked for that respect. And I just didn't have it in me. Postpartum it's such a tricky situation, because at one moment you feel so confident. At the next moment you feel, or at least for me, I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is my 4th baby. It's like, I don't know what I'm doing. Even after my 5th baby, I was still like, the more kids I had, the more confident I was that I didn't know what I was doing. And not always is that a bad thing, I think. I think it's good for me to realize that I need help. I need other people's wisdom. I need other people's experience in order to be a good mom. So that was really hard. So once the nurse left the room, I just felt really dejected, and I just sat there and looked out the window. And I remember it was a thought and it was a prayer at the same time, but I just remember thinking, I just need somebody who understands. I need somebody who understands what's going on. And at that moment, a little knock on the door, and I thought, oh goodness, like what else is it going to be? And a doctor walked in from the practice, and my OB had asked her to come in. And she explained that she wasn't really on call, but that my OB had asked her to come in to see me because she had a daughter who was diagnosed with Down syndrome, and it was an unexpected diagnosis. And so she just came in to just be with me in that moment. And it was like the quickest answer to a prayer I've ever had. But it was so nice. And she didn't say much. All she said was like, it's hard. And it was just, that was all I needed to hear, was like, it was okay that it was hard. Like it was just okay. She just let me be in that space of, it's okay that it's hard. It's okay to have the unknowns. It's going to be a long journey. This is just the first step. And it's okay that this is a hard one. So I'm forever thankful to her and to my OB for those women who just really surrounded me and helped me. And there's so many other women who helped me during that time. I mean, people were just surrounding me with encouragement and prayer and coming to my home with meals. And I'll honestly say, some days were easier than others. During my lowest point, we had been told when we were getting ready to leave the hospital, the doctor who was in charge of, she wasn't the geneticist, but it was the doctor on call, and I was unfamiliar with her and she was unfamiliar with me. But I think she was really focused on giving us the importance of urgency. I really think they'd never seen Apert syndrome. And so there was a certain amount of, we don't know what we're looking at. You don't know what you're looking at. So you really need to contact other people to figure out what's going on and to make sure we've covered all the bases. So there was a lot of urgency in that moment. So, I understand that aspect, but oh boy, the way it was delivered was, your child's going to need to go through surgery in the next couple months. She's going to need to have her sutures open. She's going to have skull surgery to make sure that there's nothing impacting her brain. She's going to need to have surgery on her hands and her feet. And it was just so much in that moment. And I told her, I said, hold on, it doesn't need to happen right now. And she said, yes, it does. And it was just that moment of being like, can we just pause? Can we just pause just a little bit and realize we need to take a breath. And that was a really great moment for me. But later on, that pressure, that knowing that we do need to find a medical team. We do need to do all this stuff. And, because of Maggie's condition, her breathing was affected. Her face, basically, like the sutures had closed early, so her nasal cavity was really small. And so, like we all know, the newborns get they have to have the little snot sucker things, all the nasties sucked out. And for Maggie, since everything was so tight in her nasal cavity, like her breathing wasn't great. And so, you're on hypervigilance, and you're hearing the gasps of her breath. And it just, as a mom, it puts you on high alert. Like, you are just so sensitive to every noise, and it's exhausting in a way that it wasn't with any other kids. And so I was sleeping with Maggie in the crook of my arm, keeping her elevated and in a position that would make it easier for her to breathe, because then that was an easier way for me to be able to sleep, because I wasn't worried about her. She was right there next to me. But let's be honest, I wasn't getting any sleep. And after no sleep and trying to figure out all the doctors and all of that with my husband, and trying to be there for the other kids and try to keep things positive, because we don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know how severe Maggie's syndrome is. I remember just looking out the window one day and a thought going through my head: I wish I could just stand in the middle of the street and just be taken away. And that fleeting thought, that temptation, I was just like, oh no, like, that's not good. That's not good. I can't glob onto that temptation. And yeah, that was just hard to hold on to, or to realize that was going through my mind, and to realize like that could go through my head. And a couple other thoughts went through my mind afterwards, and that was like, that's not a good place to be. And okay, this is potentially postpartum depression. This also could be lack of sleep. This could be a feeling of hopelessness. And so my brain just went into overdrive, like, what is going on? What's all of this? And I'm carrying too much alone, and I need to cry, and I need to just experience all of this. And, thanks be to God for the support system that I have. After that time, I didn't have any more temptations to go down that road. I think it really served as a wake-up call for me that I needed to take care of myself. And so, hand the baby off, let other people hold her. I need to get rest. I need to sleep. I need to make sure I'm eating well, because I'm not going to be any service to her or any of our other kids if I'm not in a good place. And that's really hard. That was really hard to do, was to put myself first, because it felt, it's like you have this little baby who needs so much, and it's like, why should I put myself, ahead of this child in a way? Or I guess that's how it feels. But it's just putting things in right order. I think that's what I needed to learn. And so, learning that at the beginning was really hard. That balance of taking care of myself, of letting other people take care of me, of asking for help. That was a big thing. Yeah. And it's crazy. So now Maggie's 6 years old, and it seems so far away, but at times it seems so real. And I think back to that mom looking out the window, wishing to be taken away. And, oh gosh. I just had an appointment with Maggie this last weekend. And usually, Carlos and I try to go together to support her. And usually we do, surgeries and all of the stuff we've been through with Maggie. We try to walk with her really close and let her know we're here all the time. And she is such a trooper. I mean, man, this girl is courageous. She handles a lot of things better than either Carlos or I do. We commented all the time, we need to be courageous like Maggie. But after this last appointment, or before it, she was like, can this just be you and me, Mom? Can this be Maggie and Mama time? And it's just that temptation in that moment to give in, to feel like I wasn't enough. Like, what a lie. Maggie needed me and needs me in all of my deficiencies and all of my gifts. She just needs me. Yeah. Thanks for letting me share my story. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps you be a mom that can love yourself in every aspect of your being.